right, but they're not going to do that. And with Noelle Quinn, as you mentioned, no challenge.
Welcome back to Clark USA fans. Clark in transition. Clark, oh what a look. And the layup drops. The crowd explodes. From the very first possession, you could feel it. This wasn't just another regular season matchup. This wasn't just Indiana versus Dallas. This wasn't even just two top draft picks sharing the same court. This was the moment the basketball world had been waiting for, the long-anticipated professional collision between Caitlin Clark and Paige Bueckers. For years, their paths had been running parallel, sometimes crossing, sometimes colliding, always compared. Two prodigies. Two generational guards. Two competitors wired to win at all costs. And when they finally stood across from each other on that hardwood stage, under the brightest lights, inside a sold-out Gainbridge Fieldhouse, it felt bigger than a game. It felt historic. But here's what no one expected. Caitlin Clark didn't just rise to the occasion. She took it over. To understand why this matchup carried so much weight, you have to rewind the clock nearly a decade. Clark and Bueckers weren't strangers meeting for the first time. They were basketball royalty long before the WNBA ever entered the picture. They shared USA basketball youth team camps. They competed in elite AAU tournaments as teenagers, already drawing whispers about who would be the next face of the game. Scouts circled their names. Coaches built strategies around stopping them. Fans debated endlessly online. And as they grew, so did the comparisons. Clark, the deep-range assassin from Iowa Hawkeyes, redefining what was possible from 30 feet out. Bueckers, the smooth technician from UConn Huskies, gliding across the floor with surgical precision. Different styles, same dominance. When they both became the consensus top stars in women's college basketball, the rivalry stopped being hypothetical. It became inevitable. Arenas sold out when they played. TV ratings spiked. Social media exploded with every highlight clip. They weren't just athletes, they were events. Their first truly unforgettable collision came during the 2024 Final Four. Iowa versus UConn. A national championship berth on the line. Clark versus Bueckers with everything at stake. That game was chaos in the best way possible. Lead changes. Deep threes. Tough finishes in traffic. Defensive stops that felt like championship plays. Every possession mattered. Every shot felt monumental. When the final buzzer sounded and Iowa escaped with a 71-69 victory, it was Clark celebrating. But Bueckers had proven she belonged in that moment too. From that night forward, the rivalry was no longer just about talent. It was personal. Fast forward to the professional level. Clark entered the WNBA and immediately validated every ounce of hype. She didn't just win Rookie of the Year, she electrified the league. Attendance surged. Merchandise sales soared. Every road game turned into a packed house. She wasn't just playing basketball, she was shifting the business of the sport. Then came the 2025 draft. With the #1 overall pick, the Dallas Wings selected Paige Bueckers. The rivalry had officially entered its pro chapter. The basketball world circled the calendar. When would they meet? The first scheduled showdown came in late June. But Clark was sidelined with a groin injury. She had to watch from the bench as Bueckers poured in 27 points and 6 assists. Even though Indiana won that night, it felt incomplete. Fans wanted the real thing. Head-to-head.
No restrictions. No excuses.
So when July 13th arrived, anticipation was through the roof. Gainbridge Fieldhouse was packed beyond capacity. Fans traveled from Iowa, from Minnesota, from Connecticut, from Texas. College jerseys blended with WNBA gear. Homemade signs declared allegiance to both stars. The energy didn't feel like a mid-season matchup. It felt like the finals. Before tip-off, Indiana head coach Stephanie White compared the matchup to the legendary clashes between Sheryl Swoopes and Lisa Leslie, the kind of star-driven battles that define eras. That comparison wasn't casual. It was prophetic. From the opening seconds, Clark made it clear she wasn't easing back from injury. She was attacking. 2 minutes in, she read a passing lane like she had memorized the script. She stepped in front of Bueckers' delivery, snatched the steal cleanly, and exploded down the floor. Full speed.
Nohe setasjen.
Defender on her hip. Contact at the rim. Layup. And one. The crowd detonated. That's what makes Clark terrifying. She doesn't just score. She creates momentum swings. She turns defense into immediate offense. She punishes even the smallest lapse in focus.
Here comes Sabali. Clark.
But Bueckers doesn't blink. A few possessions later, she caught the ball well beyond the arc, nearly 30 feet out. Clark closed hard, hand up, contest perfect. It didn't matter. Bueckers rose smoothly and buried the three right over her. Dallas bench erupted. Paige gave a quick glance in Clark's direction. Message received. The first quarter ended with both stars posting nearly identical numbers, 7 points, 2 assists each. It was everything fans had dreamed of. Bucket for bucket, highlight for highlight. Then came the second quarter. And everything changed. Clark began manipulating the game at a different level. Instead of forcing shots, she orchestrated. She slowed the tempo. She dissected defensive rotations. She drove into the paint, drew 2 defenders, and fired cross-court lasers to open shooters. 1 assist turned into 2. 2 turned into 4. The fever offense started humming. Then she found her rhythm from deep. 1 step back, 3 from the logo.
Splash.
Next possession, off a screen, quick release.
Splash.
Now the defense was panicking. Dallas extended pressure beyond the arc, trying to deny her space. That only opened driving lanes. Clark attacked the gap, absorbed contact, and finished through traffic. When help rotated, she threaded impossible bounce passes to cutters for easy layups. By halftime, Clark had either scored or assisted on an absurd percentage of Indiana's points. The stat sheet didn't just reflect dominance, it reflected control. Bueckers continued battling. She hit tough mid-range jumpers. She attacked in isolation. She created for teammates. But Clark's impact was multiplicative. Every possession she touched felt dangerous. The energy inside Gainbridge shifted from excitement to disbelief. You could feel history brewing. What makes Clark's performance even more staggering was the context. She was still technically on a minutes restriction, coming off injury, not even playing full throttle. And yet, she looked unstoppable. Her decision-making was razor-sharp. Her footwork crisp. Her vision panoramic. It was as if she was playing chess while everyone else was reacting in real time. Midway through the third quarter, she delivered a pass that stopped the game. Driving left, defender shading baseline, help rotating from the weak side, Clark jumped as if shooting, hung in the air, and at the last possible millisecond whipped a no-look dart to the opposite corner. Perfect placement. Perfect timing. Even players on the bench stood up in disbelief. That wasn't just skill. That was artistry. By the fourth quarter, the storyline had flipped. This wasn't Clark versus Bueckers anymore. It was Clark versus history. Every possession felt like it was adding to a legacy. She wasn't forcing numbers. They were accumulating naturally.
Points.
Assists.
Rebounds.
Steals. Efficiency off the charts. When she finally checked out to a standing ovation, the arena wasn't just cheering for a win. They were acknowledging a moment. Because this wasn't about humiliating a rival. It was about announcing supremacy. And here's the deeper truth. Rivalries elevate greatness. Bueckers pushed Clark to sharpen every edge of her game over the years. Every comparison, every debate, every college battle. It all built toward nights like this. But on July 13th, in front of a national audience, Clark made something unmistakably clear. She isn't just part of the future of the WNBA. She is shaping it. The league thrives on star power. It thrives on matchups that casual fans circle on calendars. Just like NBA fans tune in for LeBron versus Steph, this generation now has Clark versus Bueckers. And if this was chapter 1 of their professional rivalry, the next decade is going to be must-watch basketball. Because Paige Bueckers isn't going anywhere. She's too talented, too competitive, too skilled to fade into the background. She'll adjust. She'll respond. She'll come back stronger. But on this night, Caitlin Clark owned the stage. From the first transition layup to the final standing ovation, she turned anticipation into affirmation. She didn't just win the matchup. She defined it. And if this is what she can do in 25 minutes on limited reps coming off injury, the rest of the league has every reason to be nervous. Because the era of Caitlin Clark isn't coming. It's already here.
Her teammate and laid it in. She's got 20.
The explosion didn't happen slowly. It didn't build over quarters. It didn't creep up quietly. It detonated. When the second quarter began, something shifted inside Indiana Fever, and at the center of that shift was Caitlin Clark. It was as if the rhythm of the game suddenly aligned with her heartbeat. Every read became clearer. Every passing lane widened. Every defensive rotation slowed down in her mind. This wasn't just hot shooting. This was control. Total control. 33 seconds into the quarter, Eric Ogunbowl drilled a three that nudged Indiana into the lead. That single shot cracked the door open. What followed was an avalanche. From that moment on, the Fever offense moved with surgical precision. Cuts were timed perfectly. Screens weren't just set. They were weaponized. Off-ball movement pulled defenders out of position before they even realized they'd been manipulated. And Clark stood in the middle of it all, orchestrating like a maestro commanding a symphony. She wasn't forcing shots. She wasn't hunting stats. She was dissecting. There's a difference between scoring points and controlling a basketball game. Clark was controlling it. One possession, she drove hard to her right, defender glued to her hip. Instead of kicking out immediately, she hesitated just long enough to freeze the weak side help. That half-second pause created a seam. She banked the ball in softly off the glass.
Calm.
Efficient. Clinical. Next trip down, she rejected a screen, drew two defenders, and whipped a cross-court pass that arrived before the defense could rotate. Open three.
Splash.
Dallas tried adjusting. They trapped high. They switched. They hedged aggressively. None of it worked. Because Clark wasn't reacting to coverage. She was anticipating it. And then came the play. The one that made the entire arena rise before the ball even landed. It started defensively. Clark rotated over and blocked a shot. Not a highlight-chasing swat, but a perfectly timed contest that knocked the ball loose. Aaliyah Boston secured the rebound and immediately pushed the pace. Clark was already sprinting up the floor, scanning the court like a quarterback reading a blitz. Boston delivered the ball near midcourt. To most players, that's where you slow down. Reset. Initiate the half-court set. Clark is not most players. She saw Sophie Cunningham streaking down the right sideline. A defender stood between them, arms extended, trying to bait a turnover. Clark never hesitated. She launched a full-court dart, a pass thrown with velocity and vision, arcing perfectly over outstretched fingertips and dropping directly into Cunningham's stride. No adjustment needed. No extra dribble. Layup. The commentators lost it. The crowd erupted. Even opposing players shook their heads. That single sequence captured everything that separates Clark from ordinary greatness. The vision to see a pass others wouldn't attempt. The courage to throw it. The skill to execute it flawlessly. Indiana poured in 36 points in that quarter alone, shooting an absurd 16 of 21 from the field. 76%. Against a professional defense. By halftime, the Fever had 64 points, the highest first-half total in the league that season. And Clark? She had barely crossed the 20-minute mark due to her minutes restriction. That's what makes it surreal. She wasn't even going full throttle. Now, let's talk history because what happened statistically deserves context.
A little bit earlier, I asked Diana, what was your playing weight that you...
Clark finished with 14 points, 13 assists, and 5 steals in just 25 minutes. On paper, that might look solid. But in context, it's extraordinary. The WNBA has existed since 1997. Thousands of games. Generations of all-stars. And only a handful of players have ever recorded multiple games with at least 10 points, 10 assists, and 5 steals. Clark is one of them in just her second season. Even more remarkable, She is the only player in league history to record 14-plus points, 13-plus assists, and 5-plus steals in multiple games. That exact statistical combination belongs to her alone.
No footnotes. No qualifiers.
Just Clark. She also became the fastest guard ever to reach 100 assists in a season. The fastest to reach 200 points and 100 assists. Every time she steps on the court, the record book trembles. And remember, this was coming off injury. 3 games back. Managed workload. Supposed to ease into rhythm. Instead, she orchestrated a 19-point blowout. The Fever finished with 30 assists on 40 made baskets. 5 players scored in double figures. Kelsey Mitchell dropped 20. Natasha Howard added 18. Boston had 17. Cunningham chipped in 13. Balanced scoring. Fluid offense. Championship-level ball movement. But everyone in that building knew who made it possible. Clark wasn't just contributing. She was the engine. Now, let's be clear, this wasn't about diminishing Paige Bueckers. Bueckers was excellent. She finished with 21 points on 9 of 15 shooting. Efficient.
Poised.
Fearless. She extended her streak of double-digit scoring games to 17 straight to begin her career, a feat matched historically only by elite company like Aya Wilson, Candace Parker, and Natalie Williams. She showed exactly why she went number 1 overall. Her pull-up jumper is smooth as silk. Her footwork creates separation effortlessly. There was a moment where she stole the ball from Clark and went coast to coast for an and-one finish. Fearless, assertive, composed. She is special. But here's the difference, and it's subtle but powerful. Clark elevates everyone around her in a way that transforms a team's ceiling. Without Clark, the Fever are competitive. With Clark, they look like contenders. Bueckers will reach that level. Her IQ is elite. Her skill set is polished. But right now, in this moment, Clark is operating on a different frequency. After the game, head coach Stephanie White pointed out the distinction between good players and great players. Great players maintain their flow even when defenses are designed entirely to disrupt them. Clark maintained her flow. And then there were the beautiful moments. The early steal and coast-to-coast finish, instinctive and explosive. The logo 3 that forced defenders to guard her at half court. The no-look bounce pass in traffic that split 2 defenders like a magician revealing a trick. The off-ball relocation where she drifted into space, caught, and fired before the closeout arrived. Each sequence felt cinematic. Each moment added to a growing sense that we were watching something more than a regular season win. We were witnessing evolution. This wasn't just Clark versus Bueckers. This was Clark versus limitation. And on this night, there were none. The explosion wasn't about one quarter. It was about a statement. A declaration that the rivalry is real. That the future of the league is in powerful hands. That greatness doesn't wait for perfect conditions. It shows up, even on a minute's restriction, even fresh off injury, and bends the game to its will. And if this was just one chapter, the rest of this story is going to redefine an era.
Here's Clark. Nice find. Agumake push shot. Banks.
There are games you remember because of the score. There are games you remember because of the rivalry. And then there are games you remember because a player expands the boundaries of what you thought was possible. July 13th was that kind of night, and at the center of it all was Caitlin Clark. Let's start with the shot. The deep 3. The one she had been missing for weeks. For several games leading up to this matchup, Clark had been battling a shooting slump by her standards. Defenders were pressing up higher. Legs looked slightly heavy coming off injury. A few shots that normally snapped through the net were rattling out. Analysts started whispering. Opposing fans started chirping. Was the league adjusting? Was the magic cooling off? Before this game, Clark revealed something important. She had been working closely with Indiana's player development staff, and during one session they showed her statistical breakdowns from a slump Stephen Curry endured earlier in his career. Even the greatest shooters in basketball history go through cold stretches. Even the most revolutionary perimeter threat the NBA has ever seen had nights where the rim felt smaller. That conversation changed her perspective. It wasn't panic. It wasn't doubt. It was patience. And then midway through the second quarter, she crossed half court, glanced at the defender sagging just slightly too far back, and rose from the logo.
Splash.
The arena detonated. You could see it immediately. The release of tension, the quiet exhale, the confidence returning in real time. That wasn't just 3 points. That was rhythm restored. That was confirmation that the shot was still there, waiting. Moments later, she attempted to redirect a pass defensively, tipping it loose, diving into chaos, igniting another transition opportunity. She wasn't just scoring. She was everywhere. Then came something almost nobody expected. Late in the third quarter, Clark found herself guarded by J.C. Sheldon, often misidentified in the chaos of commentary, but clearly a quick, aggressive defender assigned to disrupt her. Instead of drifting out to the perimeter or calling for a screen, Clark did something different. She posted up, back to the basket. Methodical. She backed her defender down with controlled footwork. Pump fake. Shoulder turn. Fadeaway jumper over an outstretched arm.
Pure.
The announcers were stunned. "We don't usually see this from Caitlin Clark," one said. Exactly. That's what makes her terrifying. Every time defenses think they've categorized her, shooter, playmaker, deep-range threat, she unveils another layer. A post-game, a mid-range package, a defensive timing instinct. She isn't static. She evolves. And that evolution is happening fast. There was the block at the rim, not a chase-down highlight meant for posters, but a perfectly timed rejection that flipped possession instantly. There was the one-handed bounce pass through traffic that found Kelsey Mitchell in the corner for a wide-open three. There were possessions where the ball swung from Clark to the wing, to the top, to the opposite corner. Extra pass, extra pass, extra pass, until someone in an Indiana jersey had a layup with 10 feet of breathing room. That's basketball purity. That's basketball intelligence at its peak. Every possession felt like a highlight waiting to happen. Every trip down the floor carried anticipation. It wasn't reckless flash. It was calculated brilliance. And then she stepped back again. Clark, step back. She's comfortable already. You could hear it in the broadcast tone. There was a shift from analysis to admiration. What this means, so what does a performance like this actually mean for the WNBA landscape? First and most obvious, the rivalry between Clark and Paige Bueckers is real. It's not media fabrication. It's not college nostalgia stretching into pro storylines. It's authentic, layered, and deeply compelling. They've grown up circling each other. USA basketball camps.
Great job reading the defense. Her hands were...
AAU tournaments. NCAA Final Four battles between Iowa Hawkeyes and UConn Huskies. Now they represent two professional franchises with massive expectations, the Indiana Fever and the Dallas Wings. Even in a lopsided final score, the head-to-head matchup delivered. Bueckers flashed her smooth pull-up game. She attacked off the dribble. She extended her double-digit scoring streak to historic territory, joining names like Aya Wilson, Candace Parker, and Natalie Williams in early career scoring consistency. This rivalry isn't one-sided. It's evolving. And over the next decade, these two are going to trade moments, wins, playoff series, and perhaps championships. But second, and maybe more importantly, Clark has separated herself. She is no longer just the exciting young guard. She's no longer just the rookie sensation who can shoot from 30 feet. She's making a legitimate argument as the best point guard in the WNBA right now. Not someday.
Now.
Her vision borders on premonition. She sees cuts before they begin. She anticipates rotations before defenders commit. She manipulates defensive structures the way elite quarterbacks manipulate coverages. Her impact goes beyond box score totals. With Clark on the floor, the Fever's offense breathes differently. The spacing widens. The tempo sharpens. Teammates move with purpose because they trust the ball will find them. If you trap her, she finds the roller. If you hedge high, she splits the seam. If you stay home on shooters, she attacks downhill. It's a choose-your-poison scenario. And very few teams in the league have shown the ability to consistently survive that dilemma. Championship implications. This performance wasn't just about personal milestones. It was about team transformation. When 5 players score in double figures, when Natasha Howard, Aaliyah Boston, Mitchell, Cunningham, and Clark all contribute, Indiana stops looking like a rebuilding squad and starts looking like a title threat. The Fever with balanced scoring and elite ball movement are dangerous. The Fever with Clark orchestrating at this level are nearly unstoppable. Her distribution prevents defenses from loading up solely on her. Her off-ball movement forces defenders to stay attached. Her willingness to give up a good shot for a great one builds trust. And trust wins championships. Now the rest of the league has to adjust. Can Dallas close the gap? Can Bueckers elevate her playmaking to match her scoring brilliance? Can any team develop a defensive blueprint that consistently disrupts Clark's rhythm without sacrificing everything else? These are the questions that will define the second half of the season. The bigger picture rivalries shape eras. In the NBA, it was Magic versus Bird, then Jordan versus everyone, then LeBron versus whoever dared. Now, the WNBA has its own generational duel. Clark versus Bueckers. Different temperaments, different aesthetics, same competitive fire. And if this first professional chapter is any indication, we are witnessing the beginning of something transformative. Clark's growth curve is still climbing. She's adding post moves, tightening defensive reads, refining shot selection, recovering from injury, and still producing historic stat lines. If this is her at 80%, the league should be nervous about 100%, because when confidence, health, and rhythm fully align, we may see a version of Caitlin Clark that redefines what dominance at the point guard position looks like in the WNBA. The clock is ticking. The season is unfolding. Paige Bueckers will respond. Great players always do. But for now, the balance of power tilts toward Indiana. And if Clark continues orchestrating games like this, the question isn't whether she can lead the Fever deep into the playoffs. The question is who can possibly stop her. The next chapter hasn't been written yet. But one thing is clear. Women's basketball is entering a new era. And Caitlin Clark is holding the pen.